I think it was part of me not wanting to be hurt again, not go through a relationship that might not work, and just being that person that did come out of a marriage and divorced and it wasn't pretty. I was like, I never want to even put myself in a situation where that could possibly happen again.
For months, people have been asking the same question. What's really going on between Shaunie Henderson and Pastor Keion? At first, everything seemed perfect, but behind the scenes, things weren't as picture perfect as they seemed. Fans started noticing small changes. Shaunie, who once proudly shared moments with Keion, became quieter about their relationship. Her social media posts, which used to be filled with loving messages and appreciation for her husband, suddenly stopped mentioning him altogether. Keion, on the other hand, seemed to be focused more on his ministry, making solo appearances and delivering sermons that hinted at personal struggles. Then came the rumors of tension and even possible betrayal. At first, it was just speculation, but as time went on, it became clear that something wasn't right. And now Shaunie has finally spoken out. What she revealed has left fans and insiders completely stunned. This isn't just another celebrity marriage crisis. The truth behind their troubled relationship is far more shocking than anyone expected.
I want to get in, I want to get out, I want to do it how I want to do it. So just between you and me and all of our grow owners, does marriage still make sense?
At first, the changes seemed small: missed date nights, fewer social media posts, and cryptic captions that hint at trouble in paradise. Shaunie, who once proudly showcased her love for Keion, started to pull back. It wasn't obvious at first, just subtle shifts that only those paying close attention would notice. Then Keion's behavior started to change. He became more distant, not in an obvious way, but in the little things. Longer hours at work, late night calls that he quickly ended when Shaunie walked into the room, and last-minute trips that he never fully explained. When she asked, his answers were vague, always something about ministry, meetings, or personal obligations. At first, Shaunie brushed it off. She convinced herself that a busy schedule was normal, especially in a marriage where both partners had demanding careers. She told herself that Keion's late nights were nothing more than part of his job, that the quiet tension between them would pass. After all, every marriage has rough patches, right? But the red flags kept piling up. Keion had always been an open book, but suddenly his phone was never out of his sight. He started responding to texts with short, dismissive answers, sometimes even turning his screen away when Shaunie was nearby. Then there were the moments when he seemed physically present but emotionally checked out. Meals where he barely engaged, conversations that felt one-sided, and a growing distance that Shaunie couldn't ignore. Still, she held on to the hope that it was just a phase. Those things would go back to normal. But then, even their closest friends started to notice the shift. People who had always admired their relationship now whispered about how different Keion seemed, how Shaunie's usual confidence had been replaced with quiet concern. It was no longer just in her head. Others were seeing it too, and soon, those quiet concerns turned into something much harder to ignore. What started as whispers turned into undeniable evidence. Evidence that shattered the foundation of their marriage. At first, it was just small inconsistencies. Keion would say he was at a meeting, but something in his tone felt off. He'd mention a trip, but avoid giving details. Then came the late-night messages, ones that Shaunie wasn't meant to see. She wasn't the type to snoop, but one night a notification flashed across his phone screen, and in that split second, everything changed. It was a message from a number she didn't recognize, filled with words that no married man should be receiving. Shaunie wanted to believe it was nothing, maybe even a misunderstanding. But when she started paying closer attention, she noticed more. Deleted call logs, conversations that didn't add up, and a version of Keion that felt like a stranger. Then, the bombshell dropped. Someone close to them, someone she trusted, revealed the truth. The rumors weren't just speculation. A name was attached, and it wasn't just a random stranger. It was someone from Keion's circle, someone who had been around them before.
I own my space. I own my decisions. I own the fact that I was in complete denial and saw things right in front of me, but just like, I was protecting myself, I was protecting my kids, I had this family, right? I didn't want to be a failure. To me, losing my marriage was failing.
Shaunie never imagined the betrayal would come from someone so close to their inner circle. For months, she had ignored the whispers, dismissed the tension, and given Keion the benefit of the doubt. But when she finally learned who the other woman was, the pain hit differently. This wasn't some random stranger or a faceless name. This was someone she had trusted. Someone who had been around them, smiling in her face while secretly playing a different role behind the scenes. The shock quickly turned into humiliation. Every moment they had all shared together now felt like a lie. Shaunie replayed conversations in her head, remembering all the times she had confided in this person, trusted their words, and considered them a friend. The anger was overwhelming. How could someone she trusted do this? How could Keion let it happen? But once the anger settled, the heartbreak took over. This wasn't just a one-time mistake. The more she pieced things together, the clearer it became. This affair had been going on for a while. Little details that once seemed insignificant now made perfect sense. The late-night calls, the sudden disappearances, the tension that had built up between them, it all connected back to this betrayal. Shaunie had spent years building a life with Keion, believing in their partnership, trusting that no matter what, they were in this together. But now she felt like she had been living in a lie. And what hurt even more was Keion's reaction when she finally confronted him. Instead of coming clean, Keion did what many caught in a scandal do. He denied, deflected, and played the victim. Shaunie had expected him to at least admit the truth, maybe even show some kind of remorse. But instead, Keion insisted that she was overreacting. He dismissed the evidence, claiming that people were trying to tear them apart. He painted himself as the misunderstood husband, twisting the narrative to make it seem like Shaunie's suspicions were the real problem, not his actions. When she pointed out the inconsistencies, he blamed work stress, saying his demanding schedule had created distance between them. He claimed outside influences were planting doubts in her mind, trying to sabotage their marriage. But Shaunie wasn't the only one paying attention. The public had started catching on too. Keion's followers, who had once looked up to him as a man of faith and integrity, were now divided. Some defended him, believing his words and blaming social media for blowing things out of proportion. Others weren't so sure. They saw through the carefully crafted responses, questioning why someone so devoted to his marriage would be so vague about the rumors. And as more evidence surfaced, it became impossible for Keion to keep the truth buried.
I see a lot of people who just have no plans of getting married, and maybe it's the place that they're in life at that particular time. You know, like I've been there. We've both been there. We were like, absolutely not getting married. But life keeps lifing. And you change your mind, you meet Mr. Right or Mrs. Right, whatever it is, things happen that change the directive of life all the time.
Keion wasn't just any man caught in an affair. He was a pastor, a spiritual leader. And for many, this wasn't just a betrayal of marriage, it was a betrayal of faith. When the news broke, the fallout was immediate. His congregation, which had once looked up to him for guidance and wisdom, was now split down the middle. Some believed that as a man of God, he deserved forgiveness. They argued that everyone makes mistakes and it wasn't their place to judge. Others, however, weren't so quick to excuse his actions. They felt deceived, questioning how someone who preached about integrity and commitment could turn around and do this behind closed doors. The scandal didn't stay confined to his church. The media latched onto the story, and soon what had started as private whispers became a full-blown public crisis. Headlines painted Keion as the latest fallen religious leader, exposing the cracks in his carefully curated public image. Social media was flooded with discussions, with some defending him and others calling him out. Memes, reaction videos, and deep dives into his past relationships only added fuel to the fire. As the pressure mounted, Keion tried to control the damage. He released vague statements, urging people not to believe everything they heard. He leaned into public prayers, posting heartfelt messages about redemption and God's plan, and when that didn't work, he delivered what seemed like a carefully crafted apology, just enough to acknowledge the pain caused, but not enough to admit to any real wrongdoing. But no amount of PR could erase the screenshots and testimonies that kept coming out. The more he tried to dodge accountability, the more people dug into his history. Old rumors resurfaced and former associates began speaking out, adding even more layers to the controversy. It became clear this wasn't just a minor slip-up, this was a pattern. And for Shaunie, that realization made her next decision even more difficult. For Shaunie, the hardest part wasn't just the betrayal, it was realizing how much of herself she had lost in this marriage. She had spent so much time defending Keion, standing by his side, and trusting in the version of him he had shown the world. But now, she had to face the truth. The man she loved wasn't the man she thought he was, and the weight of that truth was unbearable. Behind closed doors, she struggled to process it all. The public scrutiny only made things worse. Every move she made was analyzed, every silence interpreted. Some people blamed her for not seeing the signs sooner, while others sympathized, understanding that love can blind even the strongest women. A person commented saying, "Shaunie deserves better. The way Keion has been acting just shows he's guilty. If you have nothing to hide, you don't move like this. Stay strong, queen." Another one wrote, "Not the man of God being caught up in a scandal. This is why people don't trust the church anymore. Too many wolves in sheep's clothing." Praying for Shaunie, though.
It took us a long time to get there. Don't get me wrong. It was not an easy journey.
Will Keion ever truly take responsibility? So far, he's dodged the tough questions, leaning on faith and carefully worded statements instead of giving real answers. But with the public eye on him and his reputation on the line, avoiding the truth may no longer be an option. Can he salvage his career in ministry? Some pastors have survived scandals before, but others have watched their influence disappear overnight. With his congregation divided and more people questioning his leadership, Keion faces a battle to regain trust, one that might be impossible to win. And what about Shaunie? She stayed quiet, weighing her next move. Will she officially walk away, or is there still room for redemption? After everything that's happened, is there even a path forward for them as a couple? Let me know what you think in the comments.